Hey Flutter lovers, welcome to the shop. I'm going to do a kind of a live streamy style video today where I had a kind of an idea and I just wanted to explore it live on my YouTube channel for you to see. So the idea is basically in a lot of projects or a lot of other styles of coding, like if you're doing MintLang or if you're doing Elm, or if you're maybe even doing Flutter with Remy's freezed package, you have this concept. Oh, also, and if you're doing Flutter plus states rebuilder, you often have this concept of every value, like for example, a view model has a couple of states, and you can go ahead and explain these states like this. You have initial, waiting, some people will call this loading, and then you have error, and then you have data. Okay, now here's the problem. Dart doesn't give us a way to do what people call sealed classes or enums with values. So an example of an enum with a value would be something like error with a value of type dynamic, right? And then data would be a value of type T, where enum states T extends object, right? We can't do that in Dart. So you can do this with freezed, and then with or without freeze. The purpose of this is so that you can then say something like, okay, we've got a widget, and this widget is just an example widget, and we come in here and we say, all right, we are going to have some data. Okay, so let's say we got our class view model, and then we're going to say, okay, so when switch, so then we'd up here we'd have something like, let's say we would have final view model is a value states, and I know this is not going to work, okay, because we don't have these language features, but it's kind of pseudocode here. So you'd have something like that, right? And of course this would be part of your constructor, and then you'd come in here and you'd say, okay, switch view model, all right, and if it's case states dot initial, or case, and you can see I'm using a fall through here, states dot waiting, then return circular progress indicator. Okay, and then if it's case, and this is where it falls apart in Dart, states dot error. Okay, in another language like MintLang, you'd be able to say case states.error, or actually Kotlin and Swift also allows you to do this. You'd probably say something like states.error, and then it would say something like error, and you could say return text error. Okay, now again, it's going to fail, right? So, but the idea here is that if it is an enum of states.error, then it will contain this value and you can print it through. So then if you had data, it would be case states dot data, and then you'd have your value here, and then you could do something like return text, and then it would be something like data dot, I don't know, my name, right? And then you'd have kind of a default here. And so I think for a default, what I'll do, even though I don't like ordering things this way, I would probably do the default like this, okay? So that's basically what we're talking about here. So the question is, this is not going to work, right? Because this is kind of pseudocode, like I wish it worked this way. So the question is, how do we go ahead and replicate this without using other packages? Now again, you can use freezed package to do this, and you can use something called states rebuilder, which sort of wraps your view models in this concept on its own. And those are excellent tools, and you should use them. but I was just curious, how would I go about and do this? So I'm going to see if I can throw together something kind of on the fly here. I'll probably be talking a little bit less as I think this through, but maybe you can kind of take a look and come along with me while I try to figure out how to solve this problem. How can we replicate this functionality in a way that works quite well? So let's see what we can come up with. So I imagine we're going to have something like class status with a type of data extends object. That could also be T. Depends on how much you want to, how explicit you want to be. And you could have something like E extends error or exception. I'm going to say E. I'll just do E, okay? We'll do T and we'll do E. We're not going to nail it down. Sometimes I find it easier to not quite nail it down. So then we would have our final, let's see here, we could have our final T data and our final E error, and then we could have our final status enum. I don't know. I'll do no, I can't do enum. I'll do maybe we'll just do status enum. All right, we'll keep it easy. So then we come down here and we'll say enum status enum is initial waiting error data. I think those were them. I believe those were the ones that we had spec'd out, right? Initial waiting error data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just create. I'm going to create a constructor here, and then I'm going to do a where. We'll do where, okay? And the way where is going to work. Let's see here. Let's see if we can just sketch it out. So we got where. Oh goodness. Where. How about we do function T on data, function E on error, and then we can say on initial function on initial function on waiting. Okay, and so then we come in here, and I believe, well, first of all, we're going to want these to be like so. And I sometimes like to throw that trailing comma in, depending on how it's going. So we've got our, well, I'm going to go ahead and put these in order. So on initial, on waiting, on error, on data. Okay, so, but we need a return value here, so I'm just going to use an R. So the idea here is that we can emit data or an error. And to be clear here, I haven't given this isn't like extends error or extends exception. And the reason here is because I would, in an ideal world, Dart would have some types that also kept track of the classes that it throws, okay? So before I go any further, I'll just go really quick into that. So let's say you've got this function foo, okay, and you say, okay, we're gonna take a value in here. So we'll say bool should foo, all right. And then we say switch should foo, and I know we could do this. I know we could do this with just a true false, like an if statement, but we'll just say case true, all right, and you can say return foo, all right. Now you can say case false, and then you can say throw argument error, okay, can't be false, right? And then you could say, because you can't say case null as far as I know, but you can say default, which is the same thing as case null for all intents and purposes. Actually, default is kind of like case null and case that wasn't specified kind of put together. I wish we could do case null, but we can't. So we'll just say default throw argument error dot not null. Okay. So in a programming language like Swift, what this would do is the compiler would say, okay, so this is a throwing function of type argument error. Okay. Now let's just say we come in, and this might not make sense, but we'll do state error, and then we'll say something like I don't know, can't be null. That's not how you use state error, but just to show, Swift would say it could be an argument error or it could be a state error. And then what you would do is if you came in and did something like main try foo, right, catch, or on, or you could do catch e, right? And then you could say basically, this is pseudocode, switch e dot runtime type. And then what it would do is it would automatically complete, okay, so case argument error, right? Case state error. And it would maintain that link. So every time you consume a throwing function in Swift, it will actually tell you exactly which possible errors it can throw. Now, we don't have the opportunity to do that in Dart, but I would like for somebody, if they're running their own, if they're like building an app, maybe if they can't use that feature because we don't have that feature in Dart, maybe they could say class, I don't know, my app error, and this error might include a message, right? It might include a thrown at, okay? And who knows, maybe it would also extend error. Maybe also extends error. I don't know. But I would like for somebody to be able to do this, and I would like for them to be able to have a guarantee of what that error type is. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I'm sketching this out. So let's go ahead and see if we can finish this up. So we're able to specify the data type. I'm actually going to call this a D because why not? Let's just change this halfway through. And we've got our data type. Okay, come on. We've got our data type, and we've got our error type, and we've got our return type. And so what I want to do here is we can say, okay, we'll say switch, come on, switch status enum, all right? And we're going to come in here, we're going to add the missing case clauses. I kind of wish it didn't do that. I wish it would just do them like this, because then you can just implement them as you go, but that's all right. I don't work on the analyzer. That's for the analyzer team to deal with. And we're going to go ahead and say initial. Okay, so we'll do initial on initial. Okay, but you know what? We're going to do a little, okay, why is that giving me an issue? Okay, we do need a break here, so I got a little ahead of myself. So what we're going to do here, though, is we're going to do a super quick null safety guard. So what we can do is we can say on initial, if null, then we can call it. And that's going to make our code a little bit less brittle. So we're going to come down here and say on waiting dot call break. Okay, and many of you who are a step ahead of me are already finding issues with this, but we'll handle them. Actually, go ahead and tell me in the comments if you have an idea of what you would have changed at this point, and then we'll see how I do. Okay, so on error call, okay, call this dot error, okay, or we could do error. Let's just do error. That seems to be more idiomatic Dart. So I'm gonna go ahead and break these out because I prefer to. It's just a style preference that I have. We'll say on data dot call data break. Okay. And then what do we want to do with these default? I wish we could put this up top, but we can't. So default, I'm going to say, let's say we go ahead and we'll just invert this list, okay? So we're going to put the data on the top, we'll put the error next, we'll put the weighting here, and then we'll put the initial on the bottom, but we're going to go ahead and put that default along with that initial, okay? So that's what we got, okay? The other thing we could do is we could throw an argument error, or we could throw a state error. So why don't we? I'm gonna back. You could split it either way. We could split it either way. So I'm gonna go back and do it that way because I like that better now that I'm thinking about it. So we're gonna put this default at the bottom. We're gonna say throw state error, and we're gonna say status enum must not be null. Okay. All right. So it says it has a return type, but it doesn't return. Okay. So on data we need to. Interesting. Okay. So maybe we don't actually want. How about this? How about we go like this? Okay, so instead of doing side effects, it's purely functional. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to do return, and then I'm going to get rid of those breaks. Okay, so some of you who wrote in the comments might have already picked that out, and if you did, good job. You were a step ahead of me. All right, so, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to go ahead and make sure that these match the order. Oh, I'm sorry, I fixed that, so we're going to leave it. So we're going to make sure, just ensure that these match the order of these, because then I think it's easier to read that way. And let's see if we can consume this in some way, okay? Unfortunately, we won't be able to do the error stuff on its own, but we can potentially make use of this somehow. So I'm going to come back up here. We got all this pseudocode. Let's see if we can go ahead and do status view model comma dynamic, okay? Because we don't know what the error is. Or actually, we have this error down here, right? So we're going to call it, yeah, my app error. Why not? So we're going to go view model / my app, or yeah, there you go. So there's your status. And if you look at the Flutter data package, you'll notice that it also has this concept. And I do believe that as Flutter developers spend more time with other ecosystems, they'll realize kind of the features that they're missing, and they start to make these shims like freezed and States Rebuilder has this kind of shim built into it, and then Flutter Data has a similar shim kind of built into it. And I think those shims will go away once the language gets a little more developed, a little more modern. But for the time being, let's see what we can put together. Okay. So now instead of doing this switch class, and instead of doing this switch block, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, view model dot where. Okay. And there's nothing there. Okay. So that's not great developer experience because we need one. We need at least one of these to work. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say on data is required. In fact, for the time being, let's make them all required. So we'll make them all required. Okay. Let's go ahead and do on initial. All right, we got our on initial. And on initial is going to be a circular progress indicator. Okay, so then we got our on initial. We're going to do on waiting. And those of you who have used some of the packages I mentioned before, like States Rebuilder, will recognize this pattern. This is not a new pattern. I'm not creating anything new here. I'm just kind of looking at it and seeing what I can learn. See what I can learn from trying to build out this pattern on my own. We're going to do on error, on data, D, or I would normally do E, but we'll do D right now. And we'll say text, and then what are we getting out of this? Do we have type safety? Oh my, look at this. We do have type safety, and that was intended. Okay, so we're going to come in here. We're going to say view model, and let's just give this thing. Okay, we'll say final string message. We'll send ourselves a message. So we'll go ahead and view model this.message. And then what we're going to do in here is we're actually going to print. And you know what? We're going to do it this way. We're going to say d.message. All right. So now the question is, okay, so so this is actually kind of being mapped in a way. In a lot of ways it's being mapped. So what we might do here is we might actually do a return viewModel.where. And it appears that the type safety is working. What happens if I do this? Okay, it says type string isn't a widget as required by the closures context. So it appears that we don't have to type where, but we can type where. We can type it. And you'll notice if I do this, these two fail. Okay, so we'll type it as a widget, okay? Although you don't have to, I prefer not to if you don't have to. So we're gonna go ahead and leave it just like that. So there we've gone ahead and kind of replicated the concept here, okay? So the question is, I'm gonna go ahead and delete these because you guys get the idea. You get where we're kind of going. And I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna go ahead and delete this kind of pseudocode as well. So we've got our status enum, we've got our custom error, and we've got our status and our view model. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull, I'm going to do a quick refactor, super easy. We're going to pull this out, we're going to put it into status.dart. Okay, and now we're going to pull this in from foundation, and I believe that does what we need to do. Okay, so what does status do? Status, let's tell everyone what our intent is here. Okay, so status status is a class that creates a sealed class experience, a sealed class and where pattern around typical app data states, i.e. initial, waiting, error, and data. Okay, this might not be clear to you, but hopefully this really nice for locking, for nailing, for really nice, useful for if you have any ideas for how you'd word this, go ahead and put it in the comments below. Maybe I can learn something from you guys. I'm sure I can. So for the time being, we'll just say, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we would use this to, I hate this sometimes. I think of a word and then I have a hard time nailing down what that word is. We'll say, oh my goodness, this is taking a lot longer than I'd like for it to. How about we just say helps us handle the typical states surrounding app data. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. I could spend forever trying to figure out how I want to do this. Okay, and actually, status enum could even be, well, it can't really be internal because we specify it here for the time being. Okay, so the typical states for app data. Right? Okay, so let's just move on. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But we should leave some breadcrumbs for the person who shows up behind us, okay? All right, so we've got our example widget, and we've got our build method, and we've got our view model, and we've got, let's just say, my app error. That's fine, okay. So, and you know what, for this dot thrown at, we're just going to go ahead and do this. We'll say thrown at equals datetime dot now. Why not? We'll just have it kind of do it on its own. All right, so, okay. Now let's see if we can go ahead and use this in main.dart. Let's see what happens. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come in here. We're going to call this status sealed class. And then we're going to get rid of this, get rid of this. And we're going to come in here and we're just going to say scaffold. Yeah, we're going to do scaffold, and then we're going to do body, safe area, and then we're going to do child, center, and then we're going to do child, and we're just going to do a builder, okay? We'll do a builder, and we'll say context. I know it's getting a little long in the tooth here, but we'll do a little reformat. And then we're going to come in here, and we're going to say, okay, we'll say final. What's our view model? A view model is view model. Can we import that? All right. Still under, I don't like that file name, but we'll go ahead and do view model. And then this is the message. Okay, great. So view model, this is message. And we'll say return example widget with view model, view model. Okay, but it's giving me a problem. It says it needs to be assigned to the type status. All right, so this is where you'd have to kind of thread in your own logic, okay? So we'll say final status view model equals status view model. And is it status? I guess it is status. Okay, status view model, and then view model. Is that right? Or are we missing something? We have a couple of issues here. Sorry, it's not view model. It's status data error. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this, do this, do this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll see what we can do in here. Okay, so we'll say error, null, status enum dot initial, and then remodel, and then data would be view model. Okay, what's the problem? Giving me a hard time. What's the problem? It says view model, and then of course app, my app error. Okay. All right, come here and say status view model. All right, so for those of you who've used States Rebuilder, what you'll know is that it automatically kind of wraps these models in like this helper class, which handles things like what we're doing with status. And a few other things as well. It's a fantastic package, and it helps a lot with this sort of thing. But since we're kind of developing this ourselves, we are currently having to handle this on our own. And I just kind of want to show you like how I start to kind of hack around these things that I'm a little bit unsure of. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up Simulator. For some reason, it's put me on an iPhone SE. I wonder if I can switch that. Yeah, we'll just go for it. We'll just go with it for now. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down a little bit, though. Okay. So, all right. So let's run this and see what happens. What I'm hoping will happen is that it'll run and we will get the circular progress indicator. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to change this. I'm going to say text initial on initial. That way we can tell the difference between the two. Go ahead and let that build. And so what you can imagine here is, you can imagine you have and maybe we'll go ahead and simulate this afterwards, but you can imagine a situation where you fetch some data, and if it fails, then it will, so this is taking a while because I haven't run this yet, apparently. Okay, let's go ahead and do a little hot reload. Maybe a reload. Okay. All right, so there's our on initial. So if we come in here and we do status and waiting, okay, there's waiting. If we do error, say null, but we could put an error here. We could say my app error couldn't fetch. Okay, instance of my app error. It's because we don't have a good way to handle strings. So we're going to go ahead and here we're going to say toString. And then we are going to not return super.toString, but then just do my app error message. There. So we'll just do that for now. That seems fine. All right, so we're going to go through these again. Initial, okay, waiting, error, and then data. All right, great. So that actually shows the whole concept. So then the next thing you would do is you would start building in basically which one are you throwing, okay? And we could also come in and we could go ahead and make some helper classes for that. So we could say status dot data, and this is going to be this dot data. We're going to say error equals null, status enum equals status dot data. Oop, done like that. Status enum dot data. Okay, and then we can do status dot idle, and then we say error equals null, data equals null, status enum equals status enum dot idle or dot initial. So we should rename that. We should rename that to be initial. And then we can keep coming through and we say status dot waiting. And then again we have error equals null, data equals null, status enum equals status enum dot waiting. Okay? And then we got the last one, which is status dot error, this dot error. Okay, and then we say data equals null, status enum equals status enum dot error. You know, in languages like Swift, you can just say that and it works. And I wish we could do the same thing, but we will write it all out because we must. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this into order just so it fits the flow of the other ones. And we'll just say a convenience constructor for initial status. Okay, we're going to say for waiting status, and for error status, and for data status. And then what we can do is we can come in here, and then I believe we should be able to go to main.dart, and we should be able to say, let's say status.data view model. Boom. This is the message. This is the way. And then we can, as another example, we can come in here and we can say status.initial on initial. And then we can say status.waiting. Waiting. Wonderful. And then we can do status.error. And we can come in here and we can say my app error couldn't fetch. There. So that's another way of doing it. And this is starting to look pretty decent. And what we can do now, that makes it easier to go ahead and fire off these sealed class patterned items. So I feel pretty good about that. What you could then do, you can imagine a situation where let's just write one out, okay? We're not gonna wire this up, but we'll say example async, okay? So what we'd come in here and is we come in here and we would say, let's say, okay, we're going to try to final response equals await get a thing, okay? And I'm just going to stub this out, okay? So we're going to say get a thing. So this is stubbed out. All right, and then we say, all right, then we say, this doesn't work. It has to be we're going to do async star. That makes it a stream. Okay, so stream of status of view model and my app error. Okay, so we're gonna trying to figure out why this isn't formatting. Okay, that's why. So we say yield status.initial. Okay, then yield status.waiting. Now, the reason these are back to back is because I'm just being complete. Okay, but you could go ahead and you'd probably have the initial up in here. You wouldn't have it in here. Okay, so and then you would say final response equals await get a thing, right? And then you would say yield status.data response. And then you would say catch e, and then you would say yield status.error, and then you would probably wrap that e in your my app error. So my app error, and then you could say e.message error. And then you would go ahead and just consume this. You would just go ahead and pipe the result from example async into example widget. So I wonder if we could do this real quick. You want to try it? Let's try it. If you got time, stick around. We'll go ahead and try it. So we'll say this is going to return a view model. There, okay. And we're going to say return view model. Or for people who like to be super succinct, we'll do this. Okay. So get view model. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to say, let's see here, we'll say await future.delayed duration seconds 1. Or, no, we'll do that for now. And then we can go ahead and take this out and say, so you do initial, you're delayed for 1 second, you do waiting, you're delayed for another second, and then you await get view model, and then you yield that. So this is our initial, and I like to add these comments in. It kind of helps me break it out and it makes it easier for me to read data. And then down here we'll of course have error. Okay, so let's go ahead and say we'll say view model. Yeah, we'll say view model. Or fetch view model. How about that? And it seems like a fetching task would be a future, but if you use async star, you can do it as a stream, and it's not that much harder to do it as a stream when you're using async star, and then you get to do things like your initial states, your waiting states, your data states, your error states, and it also lets you do things like fetch from cache, or fetch from local storage, fetch from a cache, go ahead and fetch it from the network, and then you can persist it, and then you can fetch it every 60 seconds. You can do all of that within a single stream, and all you got to do is add the star on the end and start yielding multiple values instead of returning a single value. That's really the only difference between async star and async. Async returns a single future, it's an asynchronous value, and then async star returns a stream, which is what we would call an async iterable. So that's what's going on there. Really nice way to write this stuff. So now we can come in here and let's see if we can make this work. Stream builder, and this is going to be status view model my app error, and then we're going to say context snapshot. Okay, so can we come in here? Oh, and check this out. We can do initial data status dot initial. Look at that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I didn't even think of that when we were doing this, but here we are. And then we're going to go ahead and do view model. I believe this will work. Snapshot dot data. Okay. I don't know what to expect here. Is it going to work? Initial. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, we need to give it a stream. So we'll say stream. What was it? Fetch view model. Fetch view model. Okay, we'll go ahead and run that. Initial loading. This is the message. Hey, look at that. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's yeah, that works. Awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw something here. So we'll just throw a random error. See what it does. On initial loading. Error has no instance getter. Message. I would have thought that the question mark would have handled that, but maybe not. Let's see what we can do here. So we'll do this. We'll do a little cheat. We'll see what we come up with. On initial. Okay, so that works. Check that out. So we'll get rid of our error here. On initial loading. This is the message. So that's it. We've pretty much replicated the bulk of the pattern in about, what is this, 69 lines. 69 lines of code, including white space. So that's not bad. I'm going to go ahead and push this up to the repo. If you guys have any thoughts, let me know. This was a longer video than my other 2 short videos. I'll be doing one more YouTube video to see if I like doing YouTube. If you have stuff you want me to cover, let me know. If you like this format, let me know. If you like the short format, let me know. Just let me know. All right, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you watching my videos.